Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's first session of LitFestx. We are with Ms. Vaidyanathan, who is the first Asian woman to have competed in the Ultraman Canada Triathlon, and she has done the Ironman and several other world championships to her credit. Anu's recently come out with her book, Anywhere But Home Adventures in Endurance. Anu, congratulations on the success of your book and welcome to LitFestx.
Thank you. It's very exciting. And I'm really looking forward to sort of seeing the themes that we've discussed,
Sure.
coming out to light, because I have quite a few things to say, hopefully. Yeah.
I'm sure our viewers are all ears. So, Anu, when we discussed the topic of the session, we said, let's talk about endurance and its importance and role, both in sport and in life. And clearly, you've been somebody who has excelled in sport in your own way, in your own sphere. And also, you have some very interesting views on how that's helped you in life. So, very broadly, run us through some of the broad areas where you think endurance is playing a major role in your life and in sport.
So that's something that I was sort of mulling over my own head after we spoke, and I think that for across all pursuits, right? I try very hard to not take too many things out of one into the other, or or vice versa. I think because we are inundated with so much information today, we are in a big rush to sort of distill our knowledge or whatever we learn from one sphere of life. We are very eager to distill that into some kind of 5-point plan, and take it over to another life maybe. But with that caveat in mind, I don't think that that's quite valid. I think that every pursuit that you sort of put yourself to brings with it its own unique perspective, right? I mean, I think, say, being a geek is very different from riding a bike to some degree. You could do it prodigiously in both cases, but then I think that the very act itself is different, right? The act of reading a book or writing something versus going out there and running for hours or cycling for hours. So I try very hard to not pretend like I have the 5-point plan, across my pursuits. And that being said, the only sort of values that I think have sort of manifested over and over again are really just to pick a hard challenge, whatever that might be. It could be, and in my case, writing was very difficult. It was nothing like I expected it to be, I guess. I mean, when you start off down any road, I guess you do have a set of expectations, either for yourself or for the pursuit itself. But in this case, it was very, very different from what I thought it would be. And I think basically the tenets of just keeping at it, trying to do the best job you can, trying not to sort of rush to the end or sort of seek glory. These are the things that I carried over across everything: engineering, sport, writing, and maybe tomorrow something else. So I just feel that those are the tenets of endurance that I carry, right? The work ethic, just the fact that if you start something, it's always a good idea to finish it, no matter how long it takes or how many sort of barriers you face along the way. And also to have a sense of calm about you. I think this notion of resilience is very, it almost seems like a loud word, but it's not a loud word. It's actually a very soft word. I think the quieter you are about the stuff that you're going through, I think it's better sometimes to internalize, and that's something that we talk about in sport as well. But you will see the same resilience in any woman carrying a basket of flowers, coming in from Mandya or wherever else, into urban Bangalore at 5 a.m. So it's not just the athletes or the writers who have that. There are a ton of people who demonstrate that on a day-to-day basis, and so I'd say these are the qualities that I sort of try to keep in my hand, or try to say that no matter what, there are certain invariants in my life that if I start something, I try to finish it. If I find it difficult, then I don't quit easily, or if I do quit, say in a week or a month, I can't think of anything to say in my book, or maybe my training is not going well due to an injury, I do set things aside, but then I try to come back to them eventually. So that's roughly what it is.
So that's a very interesting thing you mentioned, that one, not to quit easily, and two, even if you quit, then you try and come back to it. So it's not really like a serious quit. You're just taking some time off and
Yeah.
getting back to that activity,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
so essentially, what
Yeah.
you're saying, once you've set your sights on a longer term, a larger vision, or a goal, then you can have these momentary quits, if you call it, but ultimately you
Yeah.
need to keep
Yeah.
going back and keep plodding.
Yeah, see, we unfortunately or fortunately, we live in a culture where everything has to be black or white, right? I mean, you're either a quitter or you're a not quitter. You're a winner or you're a loser, or
Yeah.
you're fantastic or you're not so fantastic. So I think that between the fantastic and not fantastic, there's a huge, huge rainbow. Okay, and
Yeah.
I think that that's the rainbow that I've sort of always found the most interesting, right? Even when writing this book. Initially on my tour, I was very surprised to find that people expected beyond the episodic narration of my sport. Because this was a memoir on sport. I think basically the fact that I did not sound like Tarzan really surprised a few people, but I just kept like I like to keep saying that. It's not really the winning or the losing or the highs or the lows. It was the 350 days in between. That really sort of taught me a few things. And hopefully that is the story I've tried to tell. Because if I only focused on, hey, I finished this race, look at me, I'm wonderful, that does not make for a very interesting story beyond 2 pages. And so I think. That's sort of the sentiment I carry with me, and I'm very clear about that now. After a month of being on the road, and also seeing the 98% of the other side that that have come up and said, look, we understand this, or we completely relate to this. I think those are the highlights, right? And then you tell yourself, okay, you're not so far off the track that you should be on, right? Because I mean, there is validation to saying that it's not all spectacular. There is a whole other you know other set of experiences in between, and so yeah. I mean, I wouldn't call it quitting. I'd more say that if you are following your heart, if you're doing something, it could be anything. You could just be a programmer. You could be writing, I don't know, a module of some kind. And I think that even there, it's okay to temporarily walk away and come back. It's almost good for your brain and your body, in some cases, and especially with sport, I've seen that over and over again. And yeah, that's what I mean.
You know, we're living in a world where on one side we talk about empowering women, and on the other hand we have
Mm-hmm.
daily atrocities towards women. And in that
Mm-hmm.
environment, whether it is sport or corporate life or politics, or the woman, like you said, traveling to work at 5 a.m., whatever it is, clearly
Mm-hmm.
you there are examples of how women have then taken it up to themselves and just plodded along. So endurance,
Mm-hmm.
determination, and in many ways you've sort of exemplified that with your qualification and performance in some of these global events, which require extreme physical fitness both for men and women. And so
Mm-hmm.
tell us your own mental challenges and mental training and thought process, as a woman competing there.
See, at the time I was sort of indulging, and I'll use the word indulging over and over again. Okay, at the time I was indulging in sport to the degree that I was. I must say that I was very privileged, to not have this barrage of devices and connectedness and the sheer, amount of I don't know what it is today. I can't put my finger on it, but I think that I was basically in a space in my own life where I was trying to run away from something, right? I had failed as a PhD student. I was a miserable failure, actually. I could not talk the talk. I could not walk the walk. I was unhappy, and I had decided to quit my PhD the first time around. And this was a hard quit. This was not a quit and come back quit. So I felt, very, very deeply that I had left the life that I had known behind me, right? I only knew how to write programs. I knew how to write papers. I knew how to make PowerPoint presentations that put people to sleep. These are the only things, my skills were only these, right? And I had to leave that behind and move to Bangalore and start a business because I wasn't earning any money as a grad student. I had no notion of self-respect, and the people around me seemed very funny at the time. And I thought to myself, okay, if I can't demonstrate any semblance of a backbone when I'm 23 or 24, it's going to be very hard to do that later in life. So I said, okay, I'm not happy here, so bye-bye, and I left. But coming to Bangalore was it was a very culturally shocking experience for me, even coming back, because I had left maybe 7 or 8 years prior, and I just felt that to survive in Bangalore, I needed to make up, a set of rules that were comfortable to me. I had inherited this middle class life, where the vegetables are chopped, your clothes are ready for you in the morning, and someone's there to serve you tea or coffee. And that was not the life I was used to. And I was used to washing my own dishes, washing my roommates' dishes. I was used to, taking care of myself, basically. And coming back to Bangalore, because it was so alienating, it just felt right to, go out and ride my bike for hours, or it felt right to, run for hours. Because also, I disastrously tried to date a few men who thought it was very funny that, someone's speaking in Star Wars analogies, right? I thought it was perfectly normal to tell the guy, may the force be with you, but apparently it's not that normal. So after the first or second date, you're done. And also you're thinking, why am I sitting in this coffee day? Why can't I drink coffee at Sukh Sagar? But, these are all the social issues that I was facing. And I thought to myself, fine, I'm just going to go to bed earlier. I'm going to get up earlier and sort of navigate my own neighborhood, right, with my bike or my own two shoes. That being said, I think fundamentally I wasn't playing the gender card at all. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't thinking I'm a woman out there in the dark. I wasn't. I was conscious. Of course, I was conscious of who I was. I dressed. I dressed very, very conservatively. I did not look like a, XYZ sport brand model with my spandex or anything. But at the same time, I wasn't afraid. I mean, that's the basic, tenet of what got me through those years of training. And I think when I think about it today, even today at 4 in the morning, you can still run for about an hour or 2 hours in Bangalore, a little bit peacefully. Okay, if you wake up early enough. But when I think about empowerment, or when I think about for an urban woman, okay, I cannot speak for anyone else because I am the demographic of an urban brat. I think that empowerment doesn't really come from, the 5,000 rupee gym membership. That's not empowering. If you should be really allowed to go and explore your neighborhood the way you see fit, right? And you may not think that it's the coolest thing to sit in an air-conditioned car with your windows rolled up, And if you have a sense of adventure beyond that, I think you should have the right to sort of partake in it. And that's the part that I'm finding very strange, over time, that somehow we have these accepted theories that, for fitness or fun or being a woman sort of it lends itself to a certain train of thought, which I don't quite subscribe to, right? I think that if you want to run outside, go and run outside. And even today, women run in groups. There's been quite a surge in the amount of women that take part in, say, marathons or half marathons, or even triathlons. But I think that the numbers are still small, and I think that that's very telling about the rest of where we live it, right? And so I feel that it's always easier to sort of define your own parameters, right? I mean, write your own story and sort of hack your own life for your own circumstances, rather than trying to be like your Facebook friend or like someone you heard on the internet. I mean, I don't know, that doesn't seem very, very smart. Yeah.
No, I think some very interesting views there, and let me come to the whole experience of running the half Ironman. I'm sure it's a very grueling championship to participate in. And what was your time, and experience whilst you were training for it? Both in terms of your mental training as well as your physical training. Some interesting anecdotes that you can share.
Oh, I have plenty, but for me, see, at the time I was a PhD student, right? I traded my brain for a PhD scholarship because I wanted clean pools, right? After a year or two, the training in Bangalore had sort of worn off. The charm had worn off. In the morning I used to have these conversations in my own head, and with the cows around me for the first few years. But then that kind of wears off when you get followed, or when you have all these men around you that say things, or at some point there was also a safety issue that came up, and I had to change my routes. Actually, I had to change cities. I went to Chennai or Madras to train, and I think that at the time I was in New Zealand, right, getting my PhD and training very, very hard for all these sports. The mental makeup was very simple, right? I had a day that was about 12 to 13 hours long, and there was no variation in that routine. Every day was the same as the previous day, okay? And 12 to 13 hours I was out on the roads doing something. It would typically start with a session in the morning. It could be a swim or a run. I'd get to my lab, I'd work for a few hours. I'd have an afternoon session again, a run or a bike. I'd work another few hours, and then the evening the groups would take off, from where we worked. So it was very, very nicely set up. As far as the training was concerned, it couldn't be easier, because in New Zealand there are more cows than people, so it's always easy to find a long stretch of road that you can safely ride on, and you have nobody following you. And as far as the mental makeup was concerned, also it was very surrounded by people that came from very hardy backgrounds. New Zealand, unlike America, has a lot less, lot less wealth. There's a lot less to sort of fall budgetary. People are really focused on the sport. They like a hard challenge. You'll find these Kiwis, running up and down mountains at all times of the day. And Christchurch by itself has been the home of several, phenomenal endurance athletes, over time. And I think these were the sort of factors that came together. And my life was very simple. I was living in a little house with another lady who was, she was working, and I was renting a room in her house. We had no TV. If she had friends over, then I have a conversation, otherwise not. Or if the lab throws a party, there's 3 hours of social life, otherwise not. But my whole life was dedicated to just finishing my thesis and training. And there were a couple of hours during the during the week when I would check into Bangalore, because my business was still on and going, but it was not a full-time indulgence in work, sport, and PhD. I've never said that I did everything at the same time, because I just don't believe that that's possible. And so my life was very simple. It was actually exceptionally simple. And my wardrobe was very minimal, so that also helped. There was no ironing to speak of. And yeah, and that's how we went. And as far as the World Championships itself was concerned, the qualification round in Geelong, I think a lot of things came together. There are certain races, and even a runner can tell you that, right? There are certain races where you just know from the moment you start, that today is either your day or you're just going to screw up because you mentally. And it was one of those days, right, where the swim went very well, the bike ride went even better, and the run just came together for me. And maybe the fact that I wasn't thinking so much about anything, that really helped me a lot. I was just very focused on the race. I was looking at the people around me. Always, that's a trip for me, right? I'm not totally mentally switched off during my races. I definitely take in a lot of the people around me, and a lot of funny things were happening, and so I think those really helped me, right? And of course, when you come into races in India, or even the big ticket races, the races that have 5,000, 10,000 people around the world, there have been a couple of races where you come in, and the first thing you do is you can't help but laugh, right? Because there are these huge variety of stretching routines. There are these costumes. You're thinking to yourself, wow, how the heck are you going to run the 42 kilometers in that particular outfit? And there's all this chatter, and all of these things can be actually very uplifting, because it's something that sort of brings you back to the fact that, hey, this is just a sport after all. It's just my 2 hours of fun, nothing more. Not to be anything more. It shouldn't be about, oh, I'm going to, again, the whole Tarzan complex has sort of gone by me. I don't have it apparently. So for me, these things, really make or break the race. And of course, there have to be at least 2 or 3 issues. Either your shoelaces have to not work, or your nutrition has to be wrong, or whatever the case may be, something has to go wrong. Otherwise, you don't test your mental resilience, as you say, and that's about
Wow.
what it is. And yeah,
This all sounds so interesting, Anu, and thank you so much for taking time out to chat with us and share your views with our viewers. I'm sure for everyone watching and many more who will watch the archived video, they'll be very excited to read more of your experiences and your time, both managing your PhD, then your business and sport. And I'm sure they'll have a lot to learn from it. And more power to you, power to your legs, power to your writing, and
thank
keep doing
you.
that. Keep doing that. Take care.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.